001. Falling. First day. The beginning of his last chance. These are the survivors? Control stood beside the assistant director of the Southern Reach, behind smudged, one-way glass, staring at the three individuals sitting in the interrogation room, returnees from the 12th expedition into Area X. The assistant director, a tall, thin black woman in her 40s, said nothing back, which didn't surprise Control. She hadn't wasted an extra word on him since he'd arrived that morning after taking Monday to get settled. She hadn't spared him an extra look either, except when he'd told her and the rest of the staff to call him Control, not John or Rodriguez. She had paused a beat, then replied, "In that case, call me Patience, not Grace," much to the stifled amusement of those present. The deflection away from her real name to one that also meant something else interested him. "That's okay," he said. "I can just call you Grace." Certain this would not please her. She parried by continually referring to him as the acting director, which was true. There lay between her stewardship and his ascension a gap, a valley of time and forms to be filled out, procedures to be followed, the rooting out and hiring of staff. Until then, the issue of authority might be murky. But Control preferred to think of her as neither Patience nor Grace. He preferred to think of her as an abstraction, if not an obstruction. She had made him sit through an old orientation video about Area X. Must have known it would be basic and out of date. She had already made clear that theirs would be a relationship based on animosity, from her side at least. Where were they found? He asked her now, when what he wanted to ask was why they hadn't been kept separate from one another. Because you lack the discipline? Because your department has been going to the rats for a long time now? The rats are down there in the basement now, gnawing away. "Read the files," she said, making it clear he should have read them already. Then she walked out of the room, leaving Control alone to contemplate the files on the table in front of him and the three women behind the glass. Of course he had read the files, but he had hoped to duck past the assistant director's high guard, perhaps get her own thoughts. He'd read parts of her file too, but still didn't have a sense of her except in terms of her reactions to him. His first full day was only 4 hours old, and he already felt contaminated by the dingy, bizarre building with its worn green carpet and the antiquated opinions of the other personnel he had met. A sense of diminishment suffused everything, even the sunlight that half-heartedly pushed through the high rectangular windows. He was wearing his usual black blazer and dress slacks, a white shirt with a light blue tie, black shoes he'd shined that morning. Now he wondered why he'd bothered. He disliked having such thoughts because he wasn't above it all. He was in it. But they were hard to suppress. Control took his time staring at the women, although their appearance told him little. They had all been given the same generic uniforms, vaguely army issue but also vaguely janitorial. Their heads had all been shaved, as if they had suffered from some infestation, like lice, rather than something more inexplicable. Their faces all retained the same expression, or could be said not to retain any expression. Don't think of them by their names, he told himself on the plane. Let them carry only the weight of their functions at first, then fill in the rest. But Control had never been good at remaining aloof. He liked to burrow in, try to find a level where the details illuminated without overwhelming him. The surveyor had been at her house, sitting in a chair on the back patio. The anthropologist had been found by her husband, knocking on the back door of his medical practice. The biologist had been found in an overgrown lot several blocks from her house, staring at a crumbling brick wall. Just like the members of the prior expedition, none of them had any recollection of how they had made their way back across the invisible border, out of Area X. None of them knew how they had evaded.
To keep listening to this audiobook, I've left you a link in the description so you can do it, at no cost thanks to Audible's 30-day free trial.